Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrachatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giram Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल Hare Krishna. Today let's discuss the 16th chapter of the first canto, how Pariksit received the age of Kali. Last week we saw how Pandavas headed by Yudhishthir Maharaj, they retired from their family affairs and they all went back to Godhead in their self-same body. Initially, it was Kunti Maharani, Yudhishthir Maharaj, followed by all the Pandavas, as well as their wives, Draupadi and Subhadra Maharani. Everyone go back to Godhead after installing and training, handing over the kingdom to Pariksit Maharaj. So Pariksit Maharaj, he was a great devotee of the Lord. And not only was he a great devotee, as was foretold by all the astrologers at the time of his birth, he was a very able administrator and very chivalrous warrior. So in this chapter, we'll see how he looked after the welfare of all the citizens of his kingdom. And by citizens, we also mean all the living entities, not just humans, but how he took care of all the living entities. So Pariksit Maharaj, he ruled under the guidance of expert Brahmanas. Prabhupada says that in those days, the Brahmanas, for Brahmanas, there was no need for money at all because they were well taken care by the king, well taken care by the society. So they were able to give valuable advice for free. And because there is no obligation from their end, they don't have to speak in a politically correct sense. They always kept dharma as the focal point, and they were able to give a proper advice to the king, and the kings were also following the instructions of the brahmanas and ruling the citizens, ruling the prajas with the sole aim of taking them back to Godhead. So Pariksit Maharaj, being very well trained by Yudhishthir Maharaj, as well as all the Pandavas, they worshipped the Brahmanas in a very, very exemplary way. We saw even how when the Pandavas, they were in the forest for 13 years, with the 13th year as Agyatavash, for 12 of those years, they still maintained the Brahmanas even in the forest, the Brahmanas headed by Daumya. So here, Pariksit Maharaj also, following in the footsteps of the Pandavas, he ruled the kingdom under the expert guidance of all these qualified Brahmanas. He married Iravati, the daughter of King Uttara. So Iravati is his cousin. And Prabhupada says in Vedic times as well as in modern times, it's common for cousins to marry together. And through Iravati, he begot 4 sons headed by Maharaj Janamejaya, Prabhupada gives a brief history of Janamejaya. Janamejaya was a very great king. He was trained personally by Pariksit Maharaj. In fact, after the demise or the disappearance of Pariksit Maharaj, Janamejaya, he conducted a great sacrifice to get rid of all the snakes. And when the time came for all the snakes to be sucked into the fire, at that time, all the sages, they come and advise Janamejaya to spare the snakes, because the reason for him conducting that sacrifice was he felt, and rightly so, his father was being unjustly cursed and killed by a snake bird. So, to seek revenge, he performed a sacrifice to wipe out the entire snake race. And then in that assembly, Vyasadeva was also there, and Janamejaya pleased all the Brahmanas so well that when he expressed his desire to see his father, Vyasadeva actually brought him back alive. So Janamejaya, long after the disappearance of Pariksit Maharaj, he could actually see Pariksit Maharaj face to face and worship him, and he felt very satisfied that way, having pleased his father, who's a pure devotee of the Lord. So that's how great King Janamejaya was. So through Iravati, Pariksit Maharaj begot 4 sons, and the 4 sons were headed by King Janamejaya. He also performed a lot of sacrifices, accepting Kripacharya as his guru. Kripacharya, as we know, was the Kula Guru for the Pandavas, and even after the disappearance of Pandavas, Kripacharya was there to guide Parikshit Maharaj. So he accepted Kripacharya as his guru. He also performed 3 Ashwamedha Yagya, and he gave profuse charity. And it is said in this particular verse that the quality of his sacrifice was so excellent that even normal people could see the demigods visibly. They could actually see the demigods coming and accepting, even without them not having done any sacrifice or penance to see any of the demigod. We see in the scriptures also, for example, Hiranyakashipu, in order to get audience of Lord Brahma, he had to do tapasya. Likewise, you see Ravana, Kumbhakarna. But here we see, because the person who is performing the sacrifice is a pure devotee of the Lord, simply by being ruled by such a pure devotee of the Lord, even common men were able to see the demigods without having to undergo any special penance or sacrifice. And Parikshit Maharaj also, once when he was going around in his kingdom, he punished Kali. So these are the narrations of Sutta Goswami to Saunakadi Rishis in Naimisharanya. So when he mentioned about each of these different events, how Parikshit Maharaj ruled, how Parikshit Maharaj married, how he performed Ashwamedha sacrifice, and along with that, Sutta Goswami also says that Parikshit Maharaj, he once punished the personality of Kali. So when Saunakadi Rishis, when they heard that Kali Purush, or the personification of Kali, was punished by Parikshit Maharaj, they put forth questions. First, they say, why did Maharaj Parikshit just to punish Kali and not kill him? Because Kali Purush, as we know, is not someone who spreads auspiciousness. It spreads all negativity, all inauspiciousness. Kali, the very personality, is meant for causing quarrel amongst people. So the sages rightly asked, why didn't he kill Kali Purush? Why did he just punish him? And they also say the devotees are very keen to hear about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. What is the use of hearing any other topics? Now, the context in which they say this is they ask Sutta Goswami, please to tell us the background of why Pariksit Maharaj punished Kali. And by the way, you narrate to us the incidents only if it is in relation to Krishna. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that devotees are not very keen to know about how Kali Purush is being punished or how anything mundane was happening. They were not so keen to know more about any mundane happenings. However, they're always eager to know, eager to understand anything and everything in relation to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So here they say, please narrate all those incidents if they relate to the topics of Lord Krishna, yet Krishna Katashrayam. Only if it is in relation to that, you please narrate. Prabhupada says that in Mahabharata, for example, we come across sections that talk about astrology, talks about cosmology, talks about economics, talks about politics, talks about sociology, so on and so forth. So Prabhupada says, even though on one hand they're all mundane topics, because they're all narrated in relation to Krishna, they are also spiritual. So here, Shaunakadi rishis are also very careful not to waste even a moment to hear about something which is not in relation to Krishna. This is a big lesson for all of us. Many times we come to a satsang, we come to temple, but because of our conditioning, we tend to talk mundane topics. So we have to be very careful not to hear, talk, contemplate on things which is not in relation to Krishna. So here Saunakadi rishis, they lived for many hundreds of years. Still, they were very careful about how carefully they spend their time. Avyartha kalatvam. Prabhupada says, as we progress in Krishna consciousness, we become more conscious of how we are spending every moment in the service of Krishna. So here, Shaunakadi rishis, they say, please narrate only if it is in relation to Krishna. Why? Because devotees, they are only accustomed to licking the honey of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Atavasya padam boja makaranda liham satam kimmanye rasadalape rayusho yad asadvyayaha. They say devotees are accustomed to licking up the honey from the Lord's lotus feet. What is the use of topics that unnecessarily waste one's valuable time? Ayusho yad asadvyayavaha. What is the use of hearing something which is simply going to waste our time? Instead, as devotees, we should all be very keen to hear about and speak, contemplate on things, contemplate on narrations about or in relation to the Supreme Lord. They also say that one can easily escape death by Hari Lilamritam. In an assembly where the great sages are assembled, they send invite to all the demigods. We know this famous verse. Naham tishtami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshuva tatra tishtami narada yatra gayanti madbhaktaha. Vishnu says, I don't reside in the heart of pure yogis. I don't reside in Vaikunta either. Naham tishtami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshuva. I don't reside in Vaikunta nor in the heart of pure devotees. Tatra tishtami narada. I reside yatra gayanti madbhakta. Wherever my devotees sing and glorify me. It is in there, that place that I reside. Prabhupada says, whenever we talk about king, what is a given? There is king surrounded by his entourage, surrounded by his team, his ministers. So same way Prabhupada says, a king means surrounded by his confidants. Same way Prabhupada says, whenever we talk about Vishnu, whenever we talk about Krishna, Krishna is never alone. Prabhupada gave one instruction to one of his artist disciple. When they drew about Krishna, they say, where are the gopas or where are the devotees? Krishna is never alone. 24/7, Krishna is with the devotees. When he's sleeping also, devotees are fanning him. When he's waking up, devotees are ready with hot water and all auspicious substances ready to bathe him. When Krishna comes for dressing, everyone dresses him. When Krishna goes to The forest, again, all the devotees go with him. When he comes and wants to dance in Ras Leela, he's there. When he comes back home, Mother Yashoda and all the elderly gopis are there to serve him. In this way, 24/7, Krishna is always surrounded by his devotees. So, Prabhupada says here, just like how Krishna is present whenever he is glorified, whenever his glories are sung, heard, similarly, Krishna's pure devotees are also there. So Shaunaka Rishi says that in this assembly, because the glorification of Krishna is happening, Krishna's all pure devotees are there, including Yamaraj. And when Yamaraj comes and sees devotees being properly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, properly engaged in hearing and chanting Krishna Katha, then Yamaraj will not invite them. Yamaraj will not take them to the hellish kingdom. Instead, he will actually make peace with them and everyone can actually go back to the spiritual world. Along the same lines, we see in Bhajagovindam also. Bhagavad Gita, Kenchitadita, Ganga Jalalava Kanikapita, Shakrita Biyena, Murari Samarcha, Kriyate Tasya Yamena Nacharcha. Shankaracharya says that Ganga Jalalava, initially he says that one should hear Bhagavad Gita, read Bhagavad Gita at least once in one's life. Ganga Jalalava Kanikapita, one should drink the water of Ganga at least once in one's life. One should chant the holy name of Murari, of Krishna, at least once. If one does these three, kriyate tasya yamena nacharcha. What altercation can one have, or what fight can one have with Yamaraj at the time of death? Meaning, one will definitely go back to the spiritual world. So, same way here they say, Lord Yamaraj is also there hearing Krishna Katha, because Krishna is present wherever his glories are sung, and Krishna is not alone. He's always with his pure devotees. Because Yamaraj is his pure devotee, Yamaraj is also present there in Naimisharanya, where the Harikatha is going on. So the sages say simply by giving oral reception to this Krishna Katha, one is guaranteed to go back to Godhead. One will never be punished by Yamaraj. And on the other hand, lazy humans with paltry intelligence and short duration of life, if instead of hearing this Krishna Katha, how do they spend? They spend the whole daytime in working very hard and earning some money, and at night time in either sleeping or doing some sexual activity. That's all they do. This is in contrast to the activities of the pure devotees, which is simply to hear and chant the holy name of the Lord. So when Shaunaka the Rishis put forth this question that please tell us why Pariksit Maharaj simply punished Kali Purush instead of killing him. And then they also extended that question by glorifying about the Mahima or the glory of Harikatha. They also say what the karmis or the materialistic people do to spend their time in the life. After being rightly questioned or asked by the Saunakadi rishis, now Sutta Goswami starts to answer. First, he sets the context of how or when and where Parikshit Maharaj came and encountered Kali Purush. Parikshit Maharaj, even though he inherited the whole Jambudvipa, we were discussing last week how Bhumandala has got, we will discuss in detail in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very interesting section. The Bhumandala has got 7 Saptadvipa, 7 islands. Centralmost island is known as Jambudvipa. Pandavas, they ruled the entire Jambudvipa. The size approximately, I was saying, if you take, it's almost like 81 times the size of our Earth. That's at least that's the size. It's bigger than that. This is at least as much size as 81 times. That's how many partitions are there in Jambudvipa. So Parikshit Maharaj, even though he inherited all of this, he still has to establish his supremacy, because once a king relaxes, all the other subordinate kings will also relax, relax in the sense they won't pay tax, they won't follow the dharma properly, they won't establish justice in the society. So it's the duty of the king to always do the works to make sure that everyone is doing their duty properly. And there may always be some upstart kings. A king may die, his son may actually come and he may not cooperate. So he has to make sure that the supremacy of the kingship of Hastinapur is actually maintained. So here, Pariksit Maharaj, despite having inherited everything, he still goes and reestablishes his supremacy, reestablishes the supremacy of Dharma. So as he's going, before in fact even he starts, he could see the symptoms of Kali Yuga. We have to understand the position of Pariksit Maharaj. Pariksit Maharaj was a self-realized devotee. He saw the Supreme Lord when he was in his mother's womb. And we can imagine as a little child, he's looking at Krishna. Krishna is also Angushta Matra Mamalam. Spurat Puratamolina. We saw this verse earlier. So when Krishna enters into the womb of Mother Uttara to protect Pariksit Maharaj, he was just Angushta Matra Mamalam. He was simply the size of a thumb. So Pariksit Maharaj sees this Krishna in a very small size. When baby is born, he's still looking for the small. And then when he grew up, he realizes actually it's a Supreme Lord who can be bigger than the biggest or smaller than the smallest. He knew everything about Dharma. So when he sees these symptoms of Kali Yuga, how generally there are some inauspicious signs, inauspicious omens, how generally the effect of Dharma or Dharma is being compromised everywhere, everyone is cutting the corners, he could see Kali Purusha is slowly taking over. So when he observes these symptoms, as a dutiful king, he picks up the bow, ready to fight. Prabhupada says that on one hand, we can say something bad is happening. That's why he had to pick up the bow and arrow to fight. But as a king, he welcomes such a challenge. Prabhupada says this is the nature of Kshatriyas. When they see an opportunity to fight, they jump up and they think, wow, now is a good time for me to exercise my skills here. So in the same spirit of Kshatriya, Pariksit Maharaj picked up his bow, ready to fight who? Kali Purusha himself. And Maharaj Pariksit, he started with the well-decorated chariot, surrounded by 4 different types of his army men, like cavalry, charioteers, those who rode on the back of an elephant, those who rode on back of a horse. And they all were assembled and they all marched in a certain aesthetic way. Prabhupada says in Vedic times, everything is so auspicious. Even the marching of army will be so tastefully done, so aesthetically pleasing. Even though they are going just to fight and kill each other, still the whole presentation, Prabhupada says, will be very aesthetically pleasing in those days. So Maharaj Pariksit, equipping himself with all his armor, surrounded by all his army men, he then marches, going on all the different directions to conquer all the directions, to subdue all the rebellious kings. And then he goes around conquering the different parts of the earthly planet. In the Jambudvipa, there are 9 varshas. So here it's given, he goes and he reestablishes the supremacy in each of the different varsha. Bhadrashva Varsha, Ketumala Varsha, Kimpurusha Varsha. Kimpurusha Varsha is the place where Hanumanji lives. And Prabhupada explains that this is the place where Shukadev Goswami was born. So you will find all these references of these different varshas and dvipas in Mahabharata. Many places, the references are there. Ramayana speaks about it. Mahabharata also speaks about it. In fact, each of these varshas were visited by Arjuna himself. At the time of Rajasuya sacrifice, when Arjuna goes to conquer on all the different directions, he goes, and when he enters into this higher region, higher realm, some places he would be challenged, and in most of the places people will just come accepting the supremacy of Yudhishthir Maharaj, and then Arjun would ask them, please give me a token of your submissiveness, and they would give something valuable, and then Arjuna would collect and then bring it back to Yudhishthir Maharaj. So the descriptions are given in Mahabharata that way. So in this way, Pariksit Maharaj is also going. Now, wherever he goes, because these same places have been visited by Pandavas also, who were all his grandfathers, wherever he goes, he hears about their glories also. So Pariksit Maharaj heard in those places the glories of his ancestors and that of Lord Krishna, and people were singing glories of how Lord Krishna protected Pariksit Maharaj also. Part of the narration, they also say how Krishna was there with the Pandavas, how he was their cousin, he was like their friend, he was their order carrier, he was their messenger, he was their relative, so on and so forth. And in the course of them narrating about Krishna's dealings with the Pandavas, they also said that same Krishna entered into the womb of Mother Uttara and he protected Pariksit. So Pariksit was very glad to hear about how Supreme Lord favored him also because of his relation to the Pandavas. So here he hears about the glories of his ancestors, that of Lord Krishna, his own deliverance from Brahmastra, and the devotion of Pandavas and Vrishnis for Lord Krishna. So when he hears all this, he felt very satisfied, and being pleased with all those glorification, he very generously donated wealth to all of them for their satisfaction. And then Krishna's affection towards Pandavas, Krishna, he is the Supreme Lord. He is being obeyed universally by everyone, but to Pandavas he rendered all kinds of service. Sarartha parshada sevana sakya dautya Virashananu gamana stavana pranaman snigdeshu pandushu jagat pranitem cha vishnur bhaktim karoti nripatis charana ravinde. So Pariksit Maharaj, when he heard about the glories, he heard about how in so many different ways Krishna served the Pandavas. Saratya, he served them as chariot driver. Parshada, one of their relatives, one of their messengers. Sevana, one of their friend. Sakya, friend. Sevana, like a servant, like a watchman, like an obedient friend. So in so many ways, Krishna was dealing with the Pandavas. When Pariksit Maharaj heard all this, his heart became overwhelmed with the devotion. He has seen that same Supreme Lord. Now he is hearing in more elaboration about how that Supreme Lord dealt with his forefathers, and not only just him. So this is how Pariksit Maharaj, as he went to different directions, he was hearing the glories. And now while he was conquering on all the different directions, at that time, the personality of Dharma took a form of a bull. It was moving only on one leg, and it met the personality of Earth known as Dharani Devi. This personality, Dharani Devi, will come across in Brihad Bhagavatamrita when Gopakumar travels, when he goes past the realm of this universe. Universe is covered by different coverings. One of the covering is Earth. In the covering of the Earth, there is life. Supreme Lord is still residing there in the form of Varahadev, and there he is being worshipped also. You will come across. So the personality of Earth, she is known as Dharani Devi. Dharani means Earth. So the personality of religion, which is Dharma, takes the form of a bull moving in one leg. And as it is moving one leg, it comes across Dharani Devi, Mother Earth, who has taken the form of a cow. Dharani Devi also takes the form of a lady. That's her original form. She takes the form of a cow. She takes the form of a boat. She takes the form of different things you will come across. As a planet itself also, you will see. So here he meets the personality of Earth, Dharani, who lost her bodily luster and had tears in her eyes. So Dharma is addressing Mother Earth as Mother. Prabhupada explains in the purport that bull personifies Dharma and cow. These two animals, Prabhupada says, cow gives milk, which is the aggregate of all the foodstuffs possible. In other words, simply by taking milk, one can get everything which one will find in other foodstuffs. Prabhupada says this is the milk is the aggregate of all the food items. So here Prabhupada says these two are the most important animals for any civilized human society. And if the bull is happy, the cow is happy, that means the civilization as a whole is progressing in the right direction. Bull is needed to plow the fields, and cow is needed to give milk, which is required to nourish the finer tissues of the brain, which is required to understand and practice the path of self-realization. Milk is also needed to make butter, ghee, which is used to perform sacrifices. And Prabhupada makes a very interesting point here. He says whenever a sacrifice is performed, the sun god is satisfied. When the sun god is satisfied, he then evaporates the water, holds the water in the form of cloud, and then he disperses the rains to everywhere, to the surface of the earth. And the rain in turn, when it falls down on the ground, it nourishes the plants. Plants actually grow nicely. In turn, they give grains, and that grain is needed for the sustenance of humans. So in this way, there is a clear interdependency between all these different aspects in nature, in the karma cycle. Annat bhavanti bhutani, parjanyat anna sambhava. We study that in Bhagavad Gita. So yagyat bhavati parjanya, yagya karma samudbhava. So this all living entities subsist on food grains, which come from rain. Rain is coming from sacrifice, and sacrifice is performed through one's duty, one's karma. So here, in this way, everyone has to do their part. If one does sacrifice, that pleases the sun god makes the cloud, and the cloud in turn actually gives the rain. Rain in turn nourishes the plants, and plants grow. Plants gives grains, and grains goes to the person to nourish the person who performed as a sacrifice. In this way, this entire cycle works. Prabhupada says, unfortunately, in modern days, people have opened slaughterhouses, killing these most important animals, bulls and cows, and they devour on them without understanding that even for the maintenance of these animals, if somebody is a habituated meat eater, Prabhupada says, mlecha, the word mlecha is used not, this is a very interesting point Prabhupada mentions, mlecha is a word not used for all non-vegetarians. Prabhupada says mlecha is not used to address one who is a meat eater, who is eating meat in accordance with the scripture. Like there are some concessions that are given in Vedic scriptures even to eat meat. They have to do on an Amavasya, they can kill goat, offer it to Kali as a sacrifice, also offering the prayer that you are giving the right to the goat to kill you in the next life. So when one is actually following at least the rule and regulation this way and doing, Prabhupada says such a person is not called a mlecha. Mlecha means one who eats meat not in accordance with the scripture. That is a mlecha. So here Prabhupada says, Western countries, Prabhupada generally says mlecha desh. because there is unlimited, so to speak, or there is indiscriminate rather killing of the animals, especially the cows, which is not at all recommended. In fact, it is condemned in the scriptures. Here we'll see simply because Kali Purush was hurting the cow, not even killing, hurting the cow. Pariksit Maharaj raises his sword ready to kill him. So cow is worshipped. Prabhupada says in one place, cow is our mother. Mother gives us milk. Because we take milk from the cow, the etiquette is we should worship her. We should be grateful. Normally we use the word etiquette for dealing with humans. To devotees, okay, there is a certain etiquette. When politicians come, there is a certain protocol etiquette. When ambassador of a certain country comes, there is a certain etiquette. When king, queen comes, there is a certain etiquette. But Prabhupada says that because cow gives us milk, the etiquette is we should respect her like our mother. Atma Mata, Guru Patni, Brahmani, Raja Patnika, Denu. Denu is cow. Denu Datri, Tata Prithvi. Saptaita, Matra Smrita. There are 7 mothers. One of the mother is Denu, which is cow. So Prabhupada says, modern man, unfortunately, they think I can just go kill cow and eat. Prabhupada says, no, even for the subsistence, you may not eat grain. You may think I would eat animal. But even for the animals to survive, they need grains. Which brings us back to the cycle of sacrifice. So Prabhupada says, nobody can escape the cycle of sacrifice. It's just the mlechas are foolish to think I can just live only with the animals. But Prabhupada says, when there's no rain, there's no grain, there won't be even animal. Animal also will die. Then what will he eat? So whether one believes in law of karma or not, whether one is a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, one should understand that everyone is dependent on the Supreme Lord and everyone should follow the rules and regulations as given in the scriptures by the Supreme Lord. Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. So here, the personality of religion, Dharma, he was moving around and then he comes across the personification of Earth, Dharani Devi, and he is asking her the question, oh my dear mother, are you healthy? Your face appears dark, filled with grief. And then Dharma, in the form of a bull, would ask a series of questions. This section is very important because it tells the symptoms of Kali Yuga in more detail. Positively, when we understand about these symptoms, if we counteract them, take steps to counteract them, then we can transcend the influence of the age of Kali as well. We'll continue next week. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna.